Some believe no chess player has ever reached the level of greatness achieved by Bobby Fischer. A prominent Russian rival once compared him to Achilles, but without the infamous Achilles heel. Fischer was not only celebrated for his unmatched chess brilliance, but also remembered for his later descent into madness. This video explores both the triumphs and challenges of Bobby Fischer's life. Born on March 9, 1943 in Chicago and raised in Brooklyn, Fischer grew up in a modest household. His mother, Regina Fischer, was a Swiss-born Jewish woman who worked hard to raise him and his sister, Joanne, as a single parent. They struggled financially, and at times, Regina couldn't even afford to repair Bobby's worn-out shoes. Although, she was officially divorced from Hans Gerhard Fischer, a German biophysicist. It's widely believed that Bobby's biological father was actually Paul Nemenyi, a Hungarian Jewish physicist and a close friend of Regina. Bobby was introduced to chess at the age of 6 when his sister Joanne bought him a chess set and taught him the basics of the game. Unlike Monopoly, which relied on luck, Bobby found chess to be far more engaging due to its complexity and strategic depth. While Joanne quickly lost interest in the game and Regina was busy with her teaching job, Bobby immersed himself in chess, often playing for hours on end against himself. He was captivated by the endless possibilities of moves and strategies. A year later, Regina decided to enroll him in the Brooklyn Chess Club, where he began receiving lessons twice a week with Carmen Negro, one of the club's top players. Negro charged $1 per hour, but Bobby suspected the fee was less about money and more about ensuring he took the lessons seriously. And he did. His dedication to chess became all-consuming, to the point where it became more than just a hobby. It was his closest companion. Bobby didn't have any close friends growing up, as he believed friendships were only necessary for kids who had secrets to share. Since he felt he had none, he didn't see the point in forming those types of relationships. Instead, his Sundays were often spent in Manhattan's Washington Square Park, playing chess with Negro and honing his skills. As time went on, Fischer began to distance himself from Negro and instead worked closely with Jack Collins, a highly skilled chess player who once held the impressive rank of 17th in the US. Collins, who spent his life in a wheelchair, often felt like he didn't quite fit in, something Fischer could relate to. However, Collins never referred to himself as Fischer's coach, believing that describing his role in such terms would be akin to claiming that someone needed to coach prodigies like Beethoven, Shakespeare, or Leonardo da Vinci. In Collins's eyes, Fischer was a genius of the same caliber. What Collins did provide was access to his vast library of chess books, which Fischer devoured with unparalleled focus. He spent anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a day immersed in reading and studying, preparing himself for battles against older, more seasoned players. At just 13 years old, Fischer faced Donald Byrne, a 26-year-old player ranked among the top 10 in America, in a game that would later be dubbed the Game of the Century. The match took place on October 17, 1956 in New York City, with Fischer playing as black and Byrne as white. Fischer's moves during this game were mesmerizing, like a lethal form of art. In a bold and daring play, he sacrificed his queen, a move that not only showcased his brilliance, but also crushed his opponent's confidence. Byrne was thoroughly outplayed, and Fischer's victory made waves across the chess world. This game marked Fischer's arrival on the world stage as a true chess prodigy. The following year, at just 14, he claimed the US championship. By age 15, he became the youngest grandmaster in history. But it was in 1972 that Fischer achieved his most iconic feat, defeating Boris Spassky of the Soviet Union to claim the world championship. This victory was nothing short of extraordinary. The Soviets, known for their deep obsession with chess, rivaling Canada's passion for hockey or China's love for table tennis, had built an entire institution around the game. And yet, Fischer, a lone American with no institutional backing, managed to defeat the entire Soviet chess machine. His triumph was a classic David versus Goliath story, resonating deeply during the Cold War era. For many, it symbolized alone's individuals standing up to a powerful system and winning. Two global superpowers faced off in an intense battle, but not on a battlefield, on a chessboard. This legendary showdown almost didn't happen, as Bobby Fischer initially refused to travel to Reykjavik, Iceland for the highly anticipated match of the century. His demand? More money, including a share of the lucrative TV broadcast revenue. It got to the point where U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger himself urged Fischer, reportedly telling him to get over to Iceland. Fischer finally agreed. To go after a British investment banker stepped in and doubled the prize money to $250,000. However, even after arriving, Fischer was far from happy. His frustration showed in the first game, where he played poorly and lost. Things escalated further when he skipped the second game, citing distractions from the TV cameras, resulting in an automatic loss. Eventually, the tournament officials gave in to his demands and removed the cameras for the third game. From that moment on, Fischer's performance turned around. The 29-year-old high school dropout dominated the remaining matches, defeating Boris Spassky and ending the Soviet Union's 24-year dominance in chess. His victory made him a symbol of American excellence and sparked a surge of interest in the game. Chess clubs across the U.S. saw their membership double during what became known as the Fischer Frenzy. Fischer became a cultural icon, appearing on major TV shows like The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. In one memorable appearance, he wowed audiences by solving a sliding puzzle in just 17 seconds.
This was not very well mixed up. I want to say that. It wasn't well mixed up. Yeah.
17.
No.
Well, they didn't mix it up too well. It takes about 30 seconds.
It's said that his IQ was an astonishing 181, supposedly even surpassing Albert Einstein's. Despite reaching incredible levels of fame, Fischer wasn't exactly known for being likable. He often made controversial remarks, but people generally overlooked them, given his status as a Cold War chess legend. In one interview with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, he shared his opinion on female chess players.
I mean, I guess I could give every one of them a knight and still win easily. Even the world champion, this Russian woman, Bukova, they're all knight easily.
Why is this? Do women make bad chess players?
Oh, they're terrible chess players. I mean, some are better than others, you know, but they don't play in men's tournaments. I don't know why. I guess they're just not so smart.
Does it apply to all women, do you think?
Well, I guess so. I don't know. They have never turned out a good woman chess player.
He managed to upset just about everyone. During a radio interview in the Philippines shortly after 9/11, he made controversial remarks about the attacks. Despite being of Jewish descent, he openly expressed anti-Semitic views and frequently made offensive statements about Jewish people. His growing paranoia went hand in hand with his anti-American and anti-Semitic rhetoric. He became convinced that the U.S. government was targeting him and believed that Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, was after him as well. In 1975, he refused to defend his world championship title, claiming that people were trying to poison his food and that his hotel rooms were bugged. He also feared that Russians might bomb his plane. Fischer often carried a blue cardboard box everywhere he went and never revealed its contents. On one occasion, a friend took a peek when Fischer left the box unattended while using a restroom. Inside, he found a Bible, which seemed to reflect Fischer's attraction to logic and structure. However, Fischer later broke ties with the worldwide Church of God, accusing its leader, Herbert Armstrong, of brainwashing members and turning them into zombies. His mental decline became more evident when he insisted on removing his dental fillings. He claimed he didn't want artificial materials in his body, and mentioned hearing about a World War II veteran with a metal plate in his head that picked up radio signals and vibrations. Fischer's deteriorating mental health also affected his appearance. The once athletic chess champion, who had kept fit through swimming and tennis to maintain the stamina required for high-level chess, became almost unrecognizable. His downward spiral even led to an incident where California police mistakenly arrested him, thinking he resembled a robbery suspect. He spent 48 hours in jail and later wrote a book about what he described as torture during his time in custody. 4. 2 decades, Fischer stayed out of the public eye, avoiding competitive chess altogether. Financial struggles eventually forced him back into the spotlight. In 1992, he agreed to a $5 million rematch against his old rival Boris Spassky in Yugoslavia. However, the U.S. government strongly opposed the match, as it violated UN sanctions placed on the war-torn country. Americans were prohibited from conducting any business in Yugoslavia, and Fischer was warned that proceeding with the match could land him a 10-year prison sentence. Undeterred, he went ahead and won the rematch, further cementing his legacy, but adding to the controversy surrounding his life. Some say Bobby Fischer was convinced to play chess again by his teenage Hungarian girlfriend, Zita Rajcsányi, who was also a chess enthusiast. Despite their 30-year age gap, their pen pal connection reportedly turned into a romantic relationship. Although Fischer often claimed he had no interest in women, it's believed he married Miyoko Watai, a Japanese chess player, and lived with her in Japan for several years. Fischer allegedly hoped that marrying a Japanese citizen would allow him to stay in Japan, as he was evading U.S. authorities for violating sanctions. However, his efforts were unsuccessful. Japanese officials detained him for using a passport invalidated by the U.S. government. In a desperate bid for refuge, Fischer turned to Iceland, the country that had celebrated him as a hero during his 1972 World Chess Championship victory. Iceland granted him citizenship, and Fischer spent the rest of his life there, living quietly away from the public eye. What led to Bobby Fischer's mental decline? Some believe that blindfold chess, which forces players to visualize the board entirely in their mind without any physical pieces, may cause significant mental strain. However, signs of instability in Fischer's behavior appeared much earlier. Chess legend Mikhail Tal noticed this in the 1950s, even jokingly calling Fischer cuckoo. Another grandmaster, Paul Benko, once observed, "I'm not a psychiatrist, but it was clear he wasn't normal." Benko recalled telling Fischer he was paranoid, to which Fischer reportedly replied, "Paranoids can be right." Dr. Reuben Fine, ADZUFA, chess grandmaster and psychoanalyst, wrote in his book about Fischer that Fischer's mother had sought his help, concerned her teenage son was overly fixated on chess. She felt Fischer lacked social connections and needed hobbies outside of chess. Dr. Fine recounted how, during one conversation, he casually asked Fischer about school. Fischer became agitated, accusing Fine of tricking him, and stormed out. After that, Fischer reportedly gave Fine resentful looks whenever they crossed paths at tournaments, as though he had been deeply wronged by the conversation. It seems school was a sore subject for Fischer, who dropped out at 16 to fully dedicate himself to chess. He often felt self-conscious about his lack of formal education and began wearing suits during matches to appear more polished. Social interactions were never Fischer's strong suit. When CBS's 60 Minutes surprised him with a birthday cake for his 29th birthday, he flatly refused to accept it, showcasing his discomfort with even small gestures.
Happy birthday to you. You were worrying about this? Why were you worrying about it?
You know, I just don't go. First of all, I don't eat this kind of cake. Second of all, I don't go for these things.
All right. Should we take it away, please?
Yeah. All right.
Paranoia seemed to be a recurring theme in Bobby Fischer's family. The FBI reportedly labeled his mother, Regina, as mentally unstable and even kept secret files on her. Surveillance on her began during the early days of the Cold War in the 1940s. The agency suspected that Regina, a politically active leftist, might have been working as a communist spy. Both Regina and her then-husband had spent time in Russia, which further fueled the FBI's concerns. They even worried that the Soviets might have attempted to recruit Bobby himself. Bobby's relationship with Regina was far from harmonious. He harbored resentment toward her for leaving him during his teenage years to focus on her medical career. Despite their estranged relationship, Bobby was reportedly devastated when she passed away in 1997, followed by his sister a year later. Many believe these losses pushed him further into a state of mental instability, causing him to lose the last remnants of his grip on reality. Bobby's presumed father, Paul Nemenyi, was believed to have struggled with paranoia as well. A brilliant man, Nemenyi had collaborated with Hans Albert Einstein, the son of Albert Einstein, on scientific research. However, despite his intelligence, Nemenyi faced challenges adjusting to life after emigrating from Hungary to the United States in 1939. He reportedly carried bars of soap in his pockets, fearing contamination, a possible indication of underlying mental health issues. Speculation about Bobby Fischer's own mental health has circulated for years. Some believe he may have had schizophrenia or Asperger's syndrome, though there is no concrete evidence that he was ever formally diagnosed. It also appears he never sought or received long-term treatment for any mental health concerns. One can only wonder how his life might have unfolded differently if he had received proper care. Toward the end of his life, however, Fischer was in regular contact with Dr. Magnus Skulason, a psychiatrist who led Iceland's hospital for the criminally insane. Dr. Skulason stayed by Fischer's side as he succumbed to kidney failure on January 17, 2008. Fischer's final words, according to Dr. Skulason, were, "Nothing is as healing as the human touch." For someone who avoided social interactions for much of his life, these words held deep significance. Fischer, who fell in love with the 64 squares of a chessboard, passed away at the age of 64, a poignant coincidence. He requested a Catholic burial before his death. Interestingly, Fischer once contributed an article to a Boy Scouts magazine where he wrote, "With talent, study, and a positive attitude, there is no limit to how far you can go." Yet his own life didn't seem to reflect those ideals. If Fischer had remained active in the chess world, we might have witnessed him face off with Garry Kasparov, another legend of the game, despite their 20-year age difference. Unfortunately, such a match never happened. In the end, Bobby Fischer's greatest opponent was himself. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories like this.